I think when 10 years ago when we started, we thought it was a very local problem. We have these houseboats and we want to change the houseboats in water houses. We have to do an uplift for that. But we slowly started to see that the solutions we are using here to live in this big swamp, in this strange country, we could use exactly the same solutions also for cities that are just having other kind of problems, urbanization problems and problems of climate change. And then it seems that these solutions are, you could use them in London, New York, Singapore, Tokyo, everywhere where you have a problem with space. If we can make people move from land to water, make urban planners go beyond the waterfront, that change will be still, you can feel it within 300 years or 500 years, because it's a next step in urban planning processes worldwide, in the history of urban planning. Holland is an artificial country, completely fake. It's made by pumping out water to the sea, and by that we made dry land. And it's an ongoing process. So if you stop, then well, 2-3 weeks later, then water will rise again, and Holland will be gone. So in that way, the Dutch are always been fighting against the water. We made this land by ourselves. We made it from water, we made land, and now we see that doesn't work. So we are reinventing the country again. I call this depolarizing Holland, finding Holland 2.0. What's the next step in Holland? And we use that because we know that polarizing Holland, pumping water out, brings problems too. So we see that the system we worked out doesn't work. Of course, we can now hold the sea back. We are not afraid of the sea anymore, but we are now afraid of rain. And we now are afraid of rivers that are too full, because if there a lot of rain and the rivers are full of water, we can pump the water to the sea. So when Holland in general started to see these problems, and we started to use our polders by building in those cities, and urbanization started to happen in those polders, then they saw that there should be a new step in this system of polders, and that's depolderizing, making these big storage polders where you can input water in times of flooding or times of heavy rain. So that's the reason that they are more open for new ideas. We have always been finding ways to live in this country. We treat the cities exactly the same as we did 500 years ago. We place those static urban components in this rigid city grid. And that means that once you've placed it, you can't change it anymore. And the beauty about water is it gives us such more freedom. We can treat water, water gives us the ability to make up with our mistakes, to rearrange city elements, to place things new to it and take things away, and also use space in the center of cities, which we can't do now because there is no space. We can't predict what the needs of the city of tomorrow will be, because there are so many impulses for change constantly, political, economical, social, financial, that are constantly trying to change how we think and how we live and what we want. But our cities are quite static, and the beauty about what we call them these floating urban components or city apps is that you can bring them in as instant solutions. You can instant reaction towards those change. So I think in the future our cities, we should start building for change. People who are transporting those cargo from one place to another, those boats they used, they were from wood or from steel. And when people retired, they most of the time stayed living on those boats. So those were the first houseboats. But the maintenance of houses of houseboats of wood and steel is quite difficult, so they changed towards concrete. So we have had in Holland like 15,000 of these kind of houseboats. And when we started our company, our first goal was to change houseboats into water houses. And the difference between a houseboat and a water house is that the water house is with normal regulations, same regulations as on land, same house, only foundation is different. And a houseboat is something without any regulation, in which you can do just anything you want. So I think the main goal for the city of Amsterdam was to also try to transform those houseboats into normal water houses. But it hadn't been done before. Here in this country, 500 years ago, was one big swamp. Nobody wanted to live here. The refugees all of Europe came here because here was safe. Nobody could touch them. And they changed this swamp into a beautiful country. But they had to innovate and to come up with solutions constantly. And I think that's the Dutch way. Just every time go to the next step. And what you see here today in Holland, that is still not the end point of where we want to be. It's just in the middle of this process. And the Dutch way is a flow of solutions coming to an end point that will be there in 50 years, 100 years, 200 years. So I think Dutch way is a flow.